I've seen a lot of guides on how to break 80 or how to break 90 that talk about improving your short game or improving your tee box strategy. And it really shouldn't be a surprise that having a more repeatable swing and the ability to find your target more often is gonna help you lower your scores. Unfortunately, what most guys don't talk about is that scoring better has very little to do with your good shots. You're gonna hit fairways, and you're gonna occasionally hit greens, and usually you're gonna two-putt and you might make some pars. But it's actually what you do with the other 50 to 60% of the shots that don't turn out anywhere near what you expected that ultimately matters to improving your score. For most golfers, the only way to consistently lower your scores is for you to avoid bogeys, double bogeys, or even worse. But what's more important is for you to understand exactly why you make double bogeys in the first place. Today, we're gonna take a look at what causes me to score poorly on the course, and hopefully by dissecting my game, you'll get some ideas on how you can better improve your scores. Let's do it right meow. Thank you very much for checking out my YouTube channel. My name is Kenny. Some of you may know me as Kennie Kat. I am a competitive golfer, and this channel is dedicated to my journey on what it takes to become a better competitive golfer. I do release new content every single Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If this is your first time checking out the channel, please do subscribe if you like the content. And as always, the best compliment you can pay me is a thumbs up. As some of you may know from my other video, my goal for the remainder of the year is to shoot and score like a 5 handicap. Currently, I average around 3.6 double bogeys or worse per round. That's almost 4 times a round where I'm making a double bogey or worse. And according to Arco's stats, a 5 handicap golfer averages a little bit less than 1.5 double bogeys per round. I figured that if I pull the right levers and remove some of these double bogeys that I'm making on the course, everything else should take care of itself. And because you're a handicap golfer, bad shots are completely normal and they're to be expected. I suspect that most of my double bogeys come as a result of me trying to do more than I really need to do in a given situation and possibly biting off more than I can chew. Sometimes I get my ball out of position and I frequently try to recover too much of the strokes that I've lost instead of trying to manage the bad shots that I hit and prevent those bad shots from turning into bad holes. I'm going to go through my last 10 rounds and quantify exactly what caused a double bogey based off of how many strokes it lost me. So the 4 categories are as follows. Poor strategy and shot selection. Taking on too much risk and not taking my medicine, trying to recover a shot when I'm out of position instead of managing the current situation. Bucket number 2 is going to be poor execution. This is poor strikes, poor chips, simple shots that just fall outside of my normal range. Bucket number 3 is going to be penalty strokes. Bucket number 4 is going to be putting, if I happen to 3-putt or 4-putt from a distance that is otherwise reasonable. In the past 10 rounds, I tallied up a total of 40 double bogeys or worse, and here are how those percentages break down. 40% of those go into bucket number 1, which is poor strategy and poor shot selection. 20% of those go into poor execution. 27% of those are results of penalties. 12.5% of those are a result of 3 or 4 putts from a reasonable distance. One thing to note is that in bucket number 2, almost every single scenario was a poorly executed wedge shot. The biggest takeaways that I see is that bucket number 1, as I suspected, is happening 1.6 times per round. That's basically almost averaging a little bit closer to 2 times per round. I am just biting off more than I can chew and making a really dumb decision instead of just managing my bad shots and trying to minimize risk. 2 and 3 collectively are almost 50% of the reasons why double bogeys occur, and that's something that I definitely want to tackle later in the video. Number 4 is not really an issue since it falls well within the guidelines and well within the boundaries of what a 5 handicap would expect to do. They're expected to 3-putt about 11% of the time. So if 12% of my double bogeys are a result of 3 putts or more, I'd say we're right within the margins of a 5 handicap golfer. Let's talk about number 1 in more detail so that way I can give you a few examples of what I mean in my game and then hopefully give an idea of what happens when I follow my own specific advice. The first hole we're going to look at is number 12 at Talking Stick. Now, this is a tournament that I recently played in, and I knew the shot off of the tee was going to be a 3-wood because the driver would be too long, and I hit an absolutely amazing 3-wood. When we got up to the ball, I discovered that I had an unfortunate bounce that threw me into basically a tuft of weedy grass that was in this ravine area. Now, looking at the scenario, there's really only two options. The first option would be to play the ball as it lies, try to put some kind of club on it and hit it to advance it forward. But the problem with that is I was in a ravine, and the likely reality is hitting that ball where it was buried didn't give me a lot of options to really have control over the club or the face or where the ball was going to go. The most likely outcome is that I was going to end up in a worse position than when I started. And as you can see from the round recap is I did exactly that. I tried to hit this wedge shot that was waist high into this tufty grass, and of course the ball did advance forward, but it ended up back in the ravine, which is exactly the last place that I wanted to hit my next shot from. Because it was in the ravine, I couldn't get a good lie on it. I ended up hitting the ball very thin, hit it over the green, and it was out of bounds. The second option, which is simply take my medicine, is probably going to be the best thing I can do in every single scenario. That ball was unplayable. It wasn't likely that hitting that with any club that I have in my bag was going to result in anything more than putting myself in a very dangerous position. The best course of action would have been to simply take an unplayable, pull the ball back into some grass or some fairway, and then I'd have an easy, relatively simple 70 to 80 yard wedge shot into the center of the green, 2-putt from there, and I'd be able to escape with a bogey. But as you can see, situations like this where you don't think clearly and you let ego get in the way and you feel like you're close to the green and you can make something happen is what ultimately causes me to score a lot of double bogeys on the course. Next, I want to talk about a hole where I did actually use some pretty good strategy. So, Southern Dunes, another tournament that I played, I hit a 3-wood really deep and it went through the fairway on the line that I was aiming at, and I just tugged it a little bit. I got over to the ball, and it was on a very crumbly uphill sand rocky lot. Now, from the angle that this ball was at, I had a perfectly clear shot to the green, but I weighed my options knowing that I wouldn't be able to get a full swing 9-iron on it, and hitting anything less than that would not likely land and hold the green. So I made the smart conservative choice to take a quarter 9-iron shot, and I simply just chipped it down to the front of the fairway. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to save par, but I did get the ball on the green with my wedge shot, and I was able to 2-putt from there, basically taking a double bogey or worse off of the table. If I had tried the exact same thing I did in the other hole out of the sand or off of an uneven lie, it's very well possible that I could have hit that ball and ended up in a much worse position, causing that to go from just a bad tee shot to a very bad hole. The key takeaway from this bucket is a ball out of position needs to be put back in position with the easiest and highest percentage shot I have to play. I know that may sound simple, but that lack of discipline is causing me 1 to 2 strokes every single round that I play. Just because I have a clear sight line to the green does not mean that I have a clear shot to the green. There are so many other options and so many more skills that need to develop before I start playing these amazing Tiger Woods recovery shots out of the trees. So let's go on to bucket number 2, which is poor execution. And I noticed that all of my poor execution just so happened to be with wedges and wedges inside of 100 or so yards. If we take a look at TPC Scottsdale, where I played my major tournament, hole 7, it was a 195-yard flag. It's okay for me to hit a 200-yard shot that poorly. 40 yards left of the center of the target is sometimes going to happen. But from there is where I could definitely use some more help with practicing my execution. From a 50-yard bunker shot or a bunker shot inside of 25 to 50 yards, a 5 handicap is basically just getting the ball on the green and within 28 feet of the hole. That's not really a tall task or a tall order if you think about it. In this case, I got way too aggressive, hit the ball out of the sand way too far on a downhill slope, and it rolled off of the green, causing me to have to chip back onto the green. And of course, sometimes when you chip, you're not going to get up and down, and that is what created a double bogey. Another hole I want to take a look at with poor execution of wedges is my home course, Stone Creek. Here, I was trying to work on fading an 8-iron into this green and ended up overcutting it, and that's okay. Sometimes you're going to miss shots and you're trying to work on different things or hit different shots. But from the position that I was at, it should have been a relatively simple wedge shot to get this back onto the green. But of course, my poor execution comes from a lack of discipline. This is more so of me looking at a shot not using my trusted strategy of knowing that a half wedge shot or quarter wedge shot goes a certain distance, and basically just eyeballing it and saying, it feels like this amount of wedge distance, and hitting it with that shot. Clearly having more discipline and conviction to stick to my tested strategy of wedge distances is what is going to prevent me from having poor execution on wedge shots inside of 100 yards. And then rolling on to number 3, it's pretty much something that we all know. You gotta keep the ball in play. Now, I know I've been working a lot with my driver and working a lot on speed training, and I've been getting some very, very, very errant shots. That's okay. I'm actually gonna put together another video on my practice plan on what I'm doing in order to make sure that I can keep my drives and my 3-wood and my hybrid and my 4-iron off the tee inside of a 50-yard wide radius. So we'll make another video talking about that practice strategy, but for right now, I really don't have much to go into detail on number 3 other than you just gotta keep the ball in play if you wanna prevent double bogeys from getting on the scorecard. My personal experience with my game is that most of my bad shots come from me simply trying to do way too much and getting way outside of my comfort zone. It's not always exciting to play conservative shots in golf, but ultimately when you're out of position or you're in trouble, the best way to get out of trouble is to simply take your medicine. When you were younger and you're playing ball inside of the house and you break your mom's vase, you don't keep playing baseball because like, oh, well, we're already in trouble, might as well, get into as much trouble as possible. No, the smart thing should be stop right there. Maybe that's my problem, because that was my philosophy when I was a kid. I was like, well, it's already broken, so can't get in any more trouble. It's not like I'm gonna get 10 times the trouble. It's like, I broke this, might as well keep breaking some other stuff and finish the game and ball in the house. But in the game of golf, when you're in trouble, the best thing for you to do is to simply accept your medicine, chip the ball out sideways, get back into position, and keep moving forward. Every time I make a double, I guarantee you it's almost always gonna be a result of me biting off way more than I can chew. I'm gonna keep working at this, and we're gonna have some follow-up videos as I put together my practice plan since I am done with all my tournaments for the 2020 season. And I'll be able to share with you all down that lens exactly what I'm gonna be doing to practice and improve my game during the off season. From my experience, I think most golfers fall into one of these 4 categories, but I'd love to hear from some of you down that lens. Let me know in the comment sections below. Do you struggle with a lot of biting off more than you can chew and just poor shot selection? Or are you someone that really struggles with your execution? Maybe you have a swing flaw that you've been working on and you constantly hit fats or thins or tops or slices. Or are you a person that has a difficult time keeping the ball in play? Maybe you're losing 4 or 5 strokes every round off of the tee. Or is putting really your arch nemesis? You do a lot of 3 putts or a lot of 4 putts from distances you know you shouldn't be 4 putting. Let me know in that comment sections below. I would love to hear what some of you struggle with when you end up making double bogey or worse. As always, thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel. That's all I got for you. Deuces, people. Let's keep it moving.